Well, welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. For more than a week, the political situation in Kenya has been very fluid. What began as an innocuous protest against the government's plan to raise taxes on some fundamental needs of the people slowly assumed a life of its own. And in 24 hours, hundreds of thousands of young Kenyans spilled into the streets, demanding the immediate and unconditional retraction of the vastly unpopular piece of legislation, the Kenya Finance Bill 2024. Now, President William Ruto's high-handed decision to crack down on the protests proved a costly mistake and something that now borders on political suicide. Despite losing tens of their comrades to the bullets of the military operation enforcing the crackdown, the young Kenyans are still out in force demonstrating, but this time asking for the outright resignation of the president. The organic nature of the Kenyan young people's resistance clearly echoes a similar peaceful uprising just under 4 years ago here in Nigeria, when the youth decided they could no longer stomach the excesses of the highly unpopular police operation known as SARS. Again, just like in Kenya, tens, if not hundreds, of protesters here in Lagos were allegedly shot dead by members of the military as the authorities desperately sought to put it down and save face. We are now being joined for a conversation by Folarin Falana, a lawyer and rap musician artistically known as Falz. Good morning and welcome to the morning show, Mr. Falz.
Good morning, ma. Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma.
Good to have you in the studio with us.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's good to have you in the studio. So we're talking about the Kenyan protest, and the Kenyan protest has rewoken memories of Endsars, October 2020, and that movement in Nigeria. How did you feel looking at the Kenyan protest, and particularly at Ruto's decision to actually step down the bill?
Yeah. First of all, to answer the first question, excited is how I felt. And I saw as you were talking earlier on, in your bid to be careful, you said protesters in Endsars were allegedly shot dead. I think with the way that the Endsars protests went, and with the way that these finance bill protests are going, we can clearly see a lot of similarities. And it also shows a lot of similarities with both governments as well. You know, you see the people come out, they're crying about a certain thing, and instead of, you know, being concerned about what they're crying about, the next move is, oh, force. Let's send the soldiers. Let's, you know, push them back. You know, because they shouldn't be challenging us. What do you mean they shouldn't be challenging you? How about you concern yourself with what they're complaining about? And why did we even get here in the first place? Now, at least one person, obviously there are conflicting reports about how many people have passed in Kenya, you know, but at least one person has died. We shouldn't have to lose a soul, you know, just because the people want to complain about something that's going on. So I think generally it's just the disconnect between the people and the people that are supposedly in charge of their affairs. And it's consistent all over Africa. It's the same story here. It's so sad to see. I said excited because, you know, the Kenyan people are moving and they're moving organically. We can see that it's not a thing of, oh, maybe, you know, just a certain sect here or here. It's like all of them and they're moving together. And it's nice to see because at the end of the day, you can't keep treating people like this. You know, so that's my feeling, and that's how I see the similarities between that and Endsars.
All right then, so let me come in here. I mean, 4 years after, we're still on this topic. Remember everything that happened from, obviously, you and Runtown starting those protests back in 2020, and then the escalation on that 20th of October 2020 itself. And like I've spoken about the Kenyans, how it's become organic. When you look at the political consciousness among young people and how it contributes to national rebirth. Now, a lot of the things, when you talk about comparisons, a lot of the things that the Kenyans are asking for, are talking about, you know, they're complaining about high cost of governance, they're complaining about the the finance bill, of course, that we're looking at increments in taxes, is similar to a lot of the problems that we have in Nigeria. If you now want to even add, you know, insecurity and, you know, food insecurity, food challenges, there's just so much happening. Now we've seen what's happened with the young people of Kenya going into parliament, and, you know, it's like an explosion, if I could use it in that sense. When we look at Nigeria and where we are headed with everything that is happening, Do you think that there are similarities there as well, or should this be a lesson for the government to look at these problems wholeheartedly to avoid something similar happening in like what's happened in Kenya?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think it's. I think I would answer in the affirmative. I think it's even overdue. I think Endsars and all the events that transpired around Endsars and even post Endsars should have been the biggest warning for this government. Should have been the biggest warning for this government. But even after, we can see that, and that's why some people would even argue that, or would even say, would dare to say that Endsars maybe wasn't successful or whatever, but, it's far from the truth. But what I mean is, because of everything that has kept on happening after Endsars is why people would even suggest that. So it seems like this government, even till today, is still disconnected from the people and the plight of the people. And, like you mentioned, tons and tons of issues that we continue to face, including inflation. Every single day, the price of food is going up in a ridiculous manner. Insecurity, people are getting kidnapped, people are getting killed. We don't seem to have an answer for terrorists. So many issues.
There's the minimum wage issue as well.
So many issues. Exactly, the minimum wage issue that even led to the strike which I actually was a victim of, because I ended up being stuck in Uyo at the time. All the airports were closed. I was meant to fly the same day. I ended up losing money because I had scheduled to film a video in Lagos, but I couldn't be in Lagos. I'd already paid for stuff. I was furious because of what I was losing, but I was happy that was happening because it was long overdue. These people are just so disconnected from the people. They never really pay attention, to what they should pay attention to. And then when all that happened and they closed everywhere and it now affected the ordinary person, was when they now said, okay, we'll now meet with these people and now try to negotiate these terms. What happened since?
All right, Falz, let me come in with two questions. First one, hopefully, will be short. I know that you stayed away a bit from social commentary at a time. I'm interested in what happened. Is it what we will call in the media analysis paralysis, that you simply got tired of complaining about the same thing, and what brought you back? Will it be the Kenyan thing? Should we deal with that first, or should I ask the second question?
So see how I'm talking now. My temperature is going up. My brother, that's the reason. My temperature is going up. My temperature is going up. I need to be careful. You get, because at the end of the day, I need to protect my own self, my well-being. It's draining to even think about, let alone talk about. It's so draining, it's so frustrating. And I think every single Nigerian, even when I'm in very casual social circles and we're talking about these issues, there is always a point where everybody's like, please, let's stop. Let's just not talk about this again. It's so draining, so demoralizing. And for that reason, sometimes you just want to take a back step. But for me, activism is not a thing where I'm doing this just for motive, because there's something I'm looking for here or there. So it's never ever going to stop. It's a part of me. It's natural. It will just come. It will just, so I'm never going to stop social commentary. If I pipe down, it's because, I'm in a different phase, or I'm, like I said earlier on, trying to keep my blood pressure down. But at the end of the day, that's the big part of me. That will always continue. Also, artistically, I'm in a realm where I'm trying to get people to focus more on what's amazing about us. We know we're going through a lot and there's so much ill around us. Yeah. But focusing on that will just make us dwell in this dark emotion. And right now, where I am artistically and, message-wise, is just to get us to focus on what's amazing about us rather than dwell in that sadness.
All right, the second part of my question is to look at what happened in Kenya and, of course, what happened in Nigeria during Endsars before then, because you have made some useful submissions about the disconnect between government and the protesters, and that they now come out, with military force to try to quell what is happening. My question to you is, when a protest gets to a level that it is scary to government, when it gets to a level like we saw in some part of Nigeria, you know, Lagos, all the lootings and stuff, as we are witnessing in Kenya at this point, what will be the ideal thing that you expect a government to do? I'm asking that because of the growing number of young people who are now in government and who I believe ought to have the ears of, you know, those who are in power. And so when they see things like that happen, when they see people breaking into shops and, you know, attacking people, deviating from the original idea of the protest, what do you think that the government ought to do ordinarily?
How should they react?
How should they react? Yeah.
I wouldn't lie to you. I can't pretend to have the answer to that question. I cannot pretend to. I think that's an incredibly difficult question to ask. What I would just say, though, is I would rather that they focused more on not allowing that even get to that point. You know, not allowing everything to get to that point. Because at that point now, it's like, really, okay, now you're in the wilderness. What do you do? But how about you prevent that happening? You know, how about you're more in touch with the plight of the people? How about when they start even complaining small, you already retract what it is that you're trying to do? You know, how about...
But you don't think Ruto did that?
I don't think he did, because apparently
It
was not until not early enough, exactly, not early
But
enough.
also, you know, some of the taxes that he did withdraw, they didn't go to the crux of the issue, right? If you're going to do a 16% tax, I think, on bread, or 25% on bread, like when you're increasing all these import duties.
I thought he stepped down the entire bill.
He just stepped down the entire bill, but he stepped down the entire bill after people had allegedly been killed, and now it's that, you know, there are times in a protest, I would say, I don't know if you agree, but I think sometimes you have like when it goes past a certain point, when people have lost their lives, the issue no longer remains and that sole issue, but becomes a larger issue at hand on what that violence is, right? Like, I don't know if you agree,
exactly,
but
which
you
is
know,
why
with
they're now calling
Endsars,
for his resignation, and that's what also happened with Endsars, because it started off with that 5-point agenda, and then after a while, it was like, okay, no, we don't even want this 5-point agenda again. Now we want all of these things, but by then it was too late because it had been infiltrated by, you know, hoodlums or sketchy people. So just to bring it back to your point about preventative measures, back to even, you know, talking about this minimum wage, for example, it's something that is done every 5 years. So why wait until the conversation is on the table to say, okay, now this is when we're now going to address the minimum wage? And even till now, following that,
we don't have a minimum wage, but we might get 2 new private planes for the presidential fleet.
So you see what I'm saying? Why wait for it to even be an uproar?
See, before your blood pressure gets high, before your blood pressure increases, let me bring you back to where you are artistically.
Yes,
because you just released Before the Feast.
Yes.
That's right. And you have like a viral dance move now with Adekunle, which I'm not going to try. It's like giving.
It's very easy.
The pom-pom. Are you really?
Yes,
that's it.
Simple.
I've been seeing people do it in the clubs and stuff. But I want to ask, do you feel like art is resistant by choosing to focus on what makes us good, the things that make us unique, things that make us wholesome? Because I believe that's something that has suffered in the past couple of years is our collective identity as a one Nigeria. Intergenerational, intertribal, interreligious, I think that has taken a step back. Now, do you think that your art allows you kind of feed into that? Is that a different form of activism, trying to show our collective identity?
100%. And I think you're spot on with the way you've described it. And, you know, a different mode, a different avenue, a different fashion to carry out activism, you know, to show our collective identity too. And, you know, even though this, as I've titled it, this EP, which is a 6-tracker, I've titled it Before the Feast. It is ideally just a palate cleanser, as I called it, because I have an album which is sequel to this, which is going to be titled The Feast. Now, on The Feast, I'm more robust with the messaging, but here, you know, on tracks like Ndike, you know, I'm speaking in Igbo. I'm even the entire inspiration for that record. It's the Eastern Nigerian culture. Originally, that's not my culture, but we are one at the end of the day, and you know, I'm showing that sort of unity, that oneness with that sound.
Do you speak Igbo?
I don't fluently speak it, but I had to learn some lines. It took some time.
What does Ndike mean?
Ilike is like the powerful. It's just is a phrase that just means. So I imagine in Yoruba it will maybe be awon alagbara, something like that. Yeah, it's like the powerful, the strong, you know. And so that was just also to embody metaphorically the grandeur of the typical African. You know, we just have that essence.
One of the leaders of the sit at home in the East, by the way, is called something that make her powerful. So be careful when you say powerful. But go on fast.
Yeah, you know, it's just of course to speak to the essence of the typical Nigerian person. You know, that grandeur is a big part of us. We always want to be, you know.
And then the powerful become the conqueror.
Exactly.
Okay.
Let's talk about your role as an artist, that combination of being an artist and being an activist. I mean, we've spoken about your new work before the Fist, but it just reminds me of Moral Instruction, which is probably one of my favorite pieces of work from you, because it really spoke to the decay in our society, and you were not holding anything back. And you think about your journey in the past 4 years, since, of course, the Endsars protest, the white paper being submitted by Judicial Panel of Inquiry, and then Lagos State government coming out and saying, oh, well, that's not factual, and police brutality still continuing in modern day Nigeria. What's your response to that after going through all of that and still thinking that there are situations like that out there?
I mean, for me, I feel when you do everything within your power, you know, when you do everything within your power, you can only sort of sit back and hope that, you know, things crystallize as you wish them to. If these things you're complaining about continue to persist, then, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, what can you do? I will just continue to do everything within my power and hope that the situation will change, you know, at some point. Like we were just saying earlier on, the situation in Kenya, if not anything, is a clear warning to any government in Africa that still thinks that they can just continue to walk over the people. Don't worry now, continue. You know, at the end of the day, I can only do so much. And yes, you mentioned, you know, we went through all that. We lost lives. People were killed. There is no denying that. There was a panel set up. You know, the military were indicted. You know, there is no denying that. But police brutality did continue. You know, of course, it's nothing compared to what it was. You know, but it did continue. So all these things that were still suffering, despite having gone through this, all I can say is, no problem, continue.
Do you think more artists should be involved in activism, or do you think it's just a personal decision? It shouldn't, because I mean, we are all patriots, we're all citizens of Nigeria, and if you can, in your own way, influence...
We ought to be. We all ought to be.
Thank you very much. And that's exactly where I was going, and that's what I was going to do. I wouldn't single out artists alone. You know, I think everyone should be more. I think it shouldn't even be... I think there shouldn't be a concept like activism, because that then limits it to only some certain types of people. I think everybody should be an activist. So therefore, we wouldn't then have to seclude those people. You know, so that's what I mean when I say there shouldn't be a concept like that, because everybody should be an activist.
But beyond being an activist, when we're talking about engaging our political space, particularly young people, do you think we need more right-minded or right-thinking people, particularly young people, in active politics?
100%. I 100% agree with that.
Will you be one of them?
I have never had any interest in politics. You know, I've always just reacted out of compassion. Everything that I do, everything that I say, everything that I make music about is just a reaction out of compassion. These things are happening around me, and I must speak about them. I have absolutely no intention to run for any office, occupy any political post. It's just not me. It's just not my calling. I don't think I would make a good politician. That's just not me. But I completely agree with you that we need a lot more people, right-minded people, you know, people that are ready to actually do things differently, occupying political offices. I 100% agree with that.
Okay, talking about protest music, I know the sort of music that, you know, you will do. Maybe it's not the kind of music that Fela, you know, will do in those days. What do you think of what Idris Abdul Karim has done lately? almost in the mode of Fela's music. That's one, in terms of messaging and in terms of activism as a musician. And then secondly, again, let's look comparatively at what the Kenyans did or are doing and what we did in Lagos by way of Endsars. People say that Endsars, even though it was strong, was, people died along the line, but it was fun-oriented. It was musically driven. People were like attending a concert. It didn't look and they
in
were having,
Lagos at the toll gate, not
Lagos.
not the whole nationwide protest.
And they were, and stuff like that. But what you saw in Nairobi was like a movement. People standing up to police and stuff like that. Do you think that the Lagos the Lagos part of
Lagos
Endsars
faction
was
of
because
Endsars.
of who we are and how music or entertainment appeals to us?
I would agree with that to an extent. Just because I can remember more clearly, I would treat the second question first. I can't really, but we'll go back to that. Yes, I would agree with that to an extent. And like you said, music is a huge part of this side of the country, and that probably was. But in fact, at the time, the way I saw it wasn't even a thing of maybe this is only just fun oriented or these people are not serious. No, I saw the music aspect of things as just like a ginger, something to just keep them going. We were there for days.
14 days on end.
We were there continuously after some time. Of course, people will not just stand and be shouting. They want to keep themselves going. And the biggest thing, or let me say one of the biggest things that has kept us going as a country is music. We can't deny that. So it was just a thing, a momentary instrument to keep us going, to keep us fired up, to keep us gingered. That's the way I saw it. I didn't even see it as anything. I know some people were saying, it's like these people are losing focus. I didn't think it was. People not eat. They were sharing pizza. People eat that. People don't go chop.
We didn't see pizza in Nairobi.
But the images, right? Yes,
I'm sure they ate. What people eat? People were, and all these things were by volunteers.
Yes.
People that just brought maybe they have people that supply pizza. They just brought there and say, this person has somebody that supplies water. Oh yeah, just bring. Like we saw a unity that we had never seen before. So we can't belittle that because maybe there was some music or there was some pizza.
And the other part of the question, the Idris Abdulkarim.
Yeah, I didn't really get that question. What about Idris?
Protest music, what do you think about it? Do you think that can, again, also ginger some kind of activism, from the creative sector, like nailing, hitting the nail on the head kind of protest music?
Very briefly.
Yeah, very briefly, I think protest music that complains, music that hits the nail on the head. I don't know that anybody has done that more than I have.
Yeah.
So, I think, I definitely do that, and I think that definitely can make a change. When it does drop, it usually causes, some sort of unrest. It usually causes a stir up. So I think that definitely is a good thing to do.
Well, thank you so much,
Falari
Falano, also known as Falz, the bad guy. Thanks for joining us. Hope that we did not raise your blood pressure too high. And we can't wait we're enjoying before the feast, but I'm sure we can't wait for the feast either.
Thank you so much.